Hi, I'm Steve G. Jones, clinical hypnotherapist, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself before we get started. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Florida, a master's degree in education from Armstrong Atlantic State University, and a doctorate in education from Georgia Southern University. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, a member of both the American Board of Hypnotherapy and the National Guild of Hypnotists, and I'm president of the American Alliance of Hypnotists. I'm the director of the Steve G. Jones School of Clinical Hypnotherapy. I also serve on the board of directors of the American Lung Association in Los Angeles. I have over 2 decades of experience in hypnotherapy, and I still maintain a busy practice and teaching schedule because I see clients and teach classes worldwide. My client base consists mainly of people who want to lose weight, stop smoking, or gain confidence. Other clients include sales teams interested in boosting motivation and increasing income. Also, singles looking for love, insomniacs desiring proper sleep, and actors desiring more confidence for their next audition. When I travel to see clients and teach hypnotherapy certification classes around the world, I visit such places as Tokyo, Japan, Barcelona, Spain, Paris, France, London, England, Montreal, Canada, Los Angeles, California, and New York, just to name a few. By the way, since you have an interest in hypnosis, perhaps you would be interested in becoming a certified clinical hypnotherapist. It's very easy to do. All you have to do is go to my website, betterlivingwithhypnosis.com, and click on Hypnosis Classes at the top. You can either train in person or online. After your training, you'll be added to our worldwide directory of certified clinical hypnotherapists, and you'll receive a certificate. I was fortunate for many years to have my office in Beverly Hills, California, where I worked with such wonderful people as Tom Mankiewicz, the writer of Superman, Geraldine Saunders, the writer of The Love Boat, and many other celebrities. I have been interviewed on CNN, Fox News, and appeared on True TV, in addition to having my own hypnosis TV show. With my over 20 years of experience, I'm happy to share with you techniques that I've both developed and learned, which can help you improve your life. I encourage you to visit my website, betterlivingwithhypnosis.com. There you will find my life's work, 22 books on hypnotherapy, over 3,000 hypnosis recordings available as downloadable MP3s or CDs, and these recordings will program your mind to achieve goals in such areas as weight loss, motivation, and stopping smoking. I also have audiobooks, such as this one, where I'm talking with you and sharing with you in a very dynamic way techniques that you can use to improve your life and the way you do things. The reason I'm telling you all of this is not to impress you, but to impress upon you that I, your teacher, am very capable and I know what I'm talking about. I'm also very happy for the opportunity to share this information with you, so rest assured that you're in good hands, and let's have some fun as we now expand your knowledge. I wish you well in all of your endeavors, and please be sure to visit my website, betterlivingwithhypnosis.com. I want to welcome you to the program about having faith in God. And this is a very deep topic. A lot of times when I talk about hypnosis or other things, those subjects are kind of light compared to this topic. This is a very heavy, very big, very deep topic because we're talking about your faith in God. And when you talk to someone about God, it becomes a very individualized thing. It becomes their God, their version of God, their conceptualization of the creator, of the entity who basically rules the universe, or if that entity for them doesn't rule the universe, it is at the very least an entity worthy of praise, and it's also the supreme being of the universe. So when we talk about God, we're talking about a subject that is huge for people. So much controversy has happened over the years because of the concept of God and conflicting concepts. Whose God is right? Whose God is wrong? My God is better than your God is better than my God, and so forth. And it is for these reasons that I say this is a huge topic. So I want you to realize that when I say God, I'm talking about your individual conceptualization of God. God to everyone is different. In fact, if you were to ask 10 people, even 10 people of the same religion, what God meant to them, you would get 10 different answers. It's not as if the answers would differ fundamentally, but there would be at least minor differences in the answer, even if 10 people in the same religion were asked the same question. So, I want you to realize that this program is not about redefining your belief in God. It's about getting you closer to God. It's about increasing your faith in God. And I want to give you a little bit of my background so you'll understand where I'm coming from. In 1990, I had the distinct honor of becoming a preacher for the Church of Christ. Now, it's important to understand what the Church of Christ is. It's also important to understand that I'm not preaching to you in this program from the Church of Christ point of view. I'm not pushing anything on you. I just want you to understand, as the creator of this program, who I am and who the creator of the universe is to me and my conceptualization. So, in 1990, I became a preacher for the Church of Christ. This is not the Crossroads Church of Christ, nor is it the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons. It is neither one of those churches. The churches of Christ are autonomous churches. I was a member of the ultra-conservative branch of the Church of Christ, which means that the Church of Christ that I attended and preached at believed in no playground, no instrumental music, what a lot of churches would consider to be boring. But it was a Christian church, and we did believe in God. I left church in 1995. I stopped preaching. Now, when I say left the church, I mean I left that particular gathering of Christians. When you're a Christian, leaving the church has a completely different meaning than it does for some other people. The church is actually not the building that you're in, but it's the group of people whom you're associated with. That is the church. So I actually did leave physically that group of people whom I had previously associated with. Since then, I've attended a variety of churches, but I still remain a member of the church, meaning I still have faith in God, and it is of a Christian variety. Interestingly enough, up until that point, 1990, when I became a preacher, I hardly had any religious background whatsoever. Fortunately for me, the Church of Christ recognized my ability to speak, recognized the fact that I was very much involved in the church and wanted to learn about God and the Bible, and so I was quickly made a minister in that particular Church of Christ. There is no procedure for that. There's not a school that you go to for it. There's no ceremony. There's no official training. It's just those who have the ability to speak and who believe in the Word of God as presented in the Bible. And if they're male and if they're adults, they are allowed to preach if they want to. Those were the rules. And so I had the good fortune of being a preacher. Before that, my religious background was rich and diverse. I had, as a college student at the University of Florida, I frequently ate lunch with the Hare Krishnas. You know, the religious organization that's often blamed for brainwashing. And by the way, they're not into brainwashing. They're into spreading the word about their religion just like every other religion. But they would give free lunches at the University of Florida, and they would ask you to come to their temple. Found myself at their temple studying their religion, learning about Krishna, learning about Arjuna, learning about all of the other entities associated with their religion, studying the Bhagavad Gita, which is essentially their Bible, studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, and learning their religion, studying their religious books, in other words. And they would also have services, and they would have lectures, and it was very interesting. Prior to that, I was exposed to a bit of Judaism. As a child, I grew up in a neighborhood which was religiously diverse: Catholics, Protestants, and Jewish people. So, for example, when the children in my neighborhood turned 13, I would go to their bar mitzvah. That's the Jewish ceremony for boys when they turn 13, which is considered to be adulthood in that religion. I also occasionally went with a neighbor lady down the street to Catholic Mass. So I was exposed to a bit of variety as I grew up, and eventually I settled on Christianity. And so that's where the majority of my knowledge stems from: Christianity. So for the rest of this program, I'm primarily going to talk using Christian references, using references from the Bible. But I want you to take this information, and if your religion is other than Christianity, I want you to glean, as we used to say in the church, I want you to glean information from this that's going to help you in your walk with God. No matter what your religion is, I want you to take away from this information that's going to help you have greater faith in God. If you are a Christian, then you'll be happy to know that the references will apply directly to your life, because I'm going to use actual Bible references. I believe that a program of this nature should come from a particular point of view, and that particular point of view should have ramifications for every other point of view out there. Again, I personally am a Christian, and I personally believe in a Christian God. However, I want the sharing of this information, predominantly from the Bible, from the Christian Bible, to affect your life no matter who you are, no matter what your religion. I want it to affect your life in a positive way. I want it to increase your faith in God as you define God. And just so I can throw this out there, if you are not a Christian, I want to encourage you to look into the things I'm saying. Look into the things in the Bible that I'm going to quote. Check them out. Try them on. Try them on for size. If you're a person who has no religion, then who knows? You might find that Christianity fits you nicely. So, whereas on the one hand, I'm not going to push Christianity or any other religion on you, I am going to talk from a Christian point of view in order to help you increase your faith in God, and I do hope that by doing so, it encourages you to at least check out the Bible. You know, when I became a Christian, one of the first verses that I remember learning was John 10:10. And I want to also tell you before I quote that verse that the verses that I'm going to use are from the New American Standard Bible. Now, when I was a preacher, I would hear that the King James Version was the best, or the New King James Version was the best, or the New International Version was the best. I want you to, if you have a bias about which version of the Bible is correct, I want you to realize that all versions of the Bible strive to give you the information in an accurate format. So if you have any biases about the version that I'm going to use, I want you to put those aside for now. And I want you to just really realize that this information is powerful and positive. As a preacher, many times I would have arguments with people about which version was right. Now, in 1990, I turned 23 years old. This year, I'm going to turn 43 years old. So, almost 20 years later, I realize that the version of the Bible you're using is not as important as the fact that all versions attempt to make the best possible translation. So, with that being said, I will quote John 10:10 from the New American Standard Bible, and all of my quotes will be from the New American Standard Bible. It says, "I came that they might have life, and might have it abundantly." And this had a lot of meaning for me because after I came to know the Lord and came to have faith in God, my life did become abundant. My life did have abundance to it, and it really hasn't slowed down since. One of the most important distinctions that I learned was the difference between faith and belief. You know, if we look at the New Testament in its original Greek, the words that are translated to belief and faith have identical meanings. But the way we understand these words currently, they have different meanings. Belief, currently, is the idea of certain things being true and understanding that certain things will happen, and all of that not necessarily affecting our lives much. For example, if we believe it will snow tomorrow, or that a certain president will become president next, or that a certain hockey team will beat another hockey team, we can believe those things, but it won't have much of a direct impact on our lives. Now, in Christianity, we can understand and believe in the doctrines that have to do with faith, but we can still be without faith, can't we? You know, even as a kid, I understood who Jesus was. I understood that he was indeed the Son of God. But I didn't understand at all what that really meant. So if you don't really know what something means, how can you act in faith? So my faith didn't really have much substance to it. Now, understand that God is pleased when you have faith in what his word means, not just in what's written. Now, here I am using he for God. Again, if you have any challenges with anything I'm saying, I ask you to please put them aside and please just gain the valuable information that I'm giving you about faith, because that's what we're talking about, increasing your faith through this information. So understand that I'm coming from a particular religious point of view, but I want you to be able to increase your faith. So let go of the idea that I'm calling God a man and not a woman. Let go of any other biases you may have and really focus in as we go through this. Focus in on the faith that you can have by paying attention to what I'm really getting at in this information, which is something of universal application. In James 2:19, James tells us that even the demons believe in Christ, and they tremble. They believe. Notice that word, they believe in Christ. So many religious people believe in Christ, but they lack faith. The faith that it takes to have a deep, honest, true relationship with Him. You know, if you believe in the facts that are presented in the Bible, it isn't the same as being saved. Salvation deals with changing that belief that you have and changing it into a faith that is personal, a personal faith that Jesus died for your sins and was raised from the dead, and that He gave you His life. There's so many Christians in the world that are constantly reading their Bibles. And when I was a preacher, there were, of course, Christians who were constantly reading their Bibles, and they could recite a lot of passages from memory. They could just knock them right out. If you asked them what a certain passage was, they could say it even better than I could, because keep in mind, I was new to the church. As of 1990, I had just shown up on the scene, studied a little bit of the Bible, and became a preacher. I was still learning a lot of the Bible as I developed in my preaching skills. But there were people who were basically encyclopedias of the Bible. As far as knowledge goes, they had it down. I want you to realize that that's not the same, and take this and apply it to any religion that you may be a member of. That's not the same as having faith. What's stopping Satan from knowing large parts of the Bible, for example, if you want to look at it that way? Knowing a lot of the Bible or knowing a lot of any other religious work is not the same as faith. Academic information does not equate to faith. It can help you increase your faith. It can make your faith stronger, but it is not faith. So reading and memorizing and reciting are wonderful. They're powerful tools for spreading information to others and reminding yourself of what you're supposed to be believing in, but they're not the same as faith. I love sushi. And I go into a sushi place, and if it's a new sushi place, let's say I'm visiting Japan, I'm visiting Tokyo, and I go into a restaurant and I'm reading the menu or doing the best I can to read it. Luckily, they have pictures in many cases. And I'm just looking it over, and I'm taking in the information, I'm studying it, I'm sort of memorizing it, because I now know after studying it for 5 minutes where certain pictures are and where certain words are on the page. And luckily, most of the people who work at restaurants in Japan speak at least a little bit of English, so maybe I've asked some questions, and I've gotten some information, I've increased my knowledge, but I haven't taken any action. I haven't ordered anything yet. That's the difference. It's just like reading the Bible can start something. That can start the ball rolling, and this could eventually become faith, or it may not become faith. It isn't faith in and of itself. Just reading the Bible is no more faith than just reading a menu, because I can read everything on that menu and I can believe in everything on that menu just like I can believe in everything in the Bible. But I'm sort of acknowledging that it exists. On the contrary, faith ties into action. Action taken based on that belief. Let me give you another example to help you understand the difference between faith and belief. Let's take tightrope walking, for example. Tightrope walking has to do, if you don't know, with walking across a rope that is tied tightly. So we have tight rope, all one word, tightrope. The rope is tied securely from one structure to another. It can be from one wood beam to another, it can be from one building to another, it can be from anything to anything else. Usually in a circus act, it's from one large metal structure to another large metal structure. And then the tightrope walker would just walk across using a pole to balance him or herself. Well, let's say, for example, we have a tightrope walker walking across two buildings. And let's say it's in New York, because there was a famous tightrope walker who did that, and I saw a film about him recently. I believe he was a French guy. And the conditions aren't really conducive to tightrope walking across two tall buildings in New York or anywhere else, because the weather conditions, the windiness up there can be so bad, so strong, that it can knock the person right off the tightrope. So clearly you have a person who wants to show off, and you have a person who is highly skilled when you have them walking across two high-rise buildings on a little tiny rope with just a stick in their hand, basically, to balance themselves. Well, let's say, for example, that you see a tightrope walker walk across the rope, and then he walks back across carrying someone with him, carrying someone on his back. And you watch the tightrope walker carrying someone on his back, and you believe in what you're seeing. You see it and you believe it. There it is. I see it. Okay, I believe it. I understand what's going on. I believe what's going on. And so I am convinced that he can do that he can put someone on his back and walk across from one building to another, walk across the tightrope with someone, and everything will go okay. That's belief. Here's where faith comes in. This guy, the tightrope walker, the expert, not the guy on his back, that guy's safely running downstairs so he can go celebrate with his friends and be safe on the ground again. But if that tightrope walker looks at you and points his finger at you and says, "Come here a minute, you're next, get on my back." Now we have the difference. You're at the threshold between belief and faith. Are you going to do it, or are you not going to do it? So, your faith is being put to the test. Do you really have faith in that? Because if you do, it's time to get on his back and it's time to go across. So you see the difference between belief and faith. Anyone can have an academic belief in something. Anyone can have a thorough understanding of something. And so many times when I was a preacher, I would see people who had a thorough understanding of the Bible from beginning to end. Yet they would talk about people. They would talk badly about people behind their backs. They weren't putting a lot of this into action. So having some sort of encyclopedic information about anything does not mean that you actually have faith in that information. It's time to order off the sushi menu. It's time to get on the tightrope walker's back. So when we understand this fundamental difference between belief and faith, it's easy to see that faith has an object. And if your faith is focused on Christ, if that's your object, then you're going to live a happy life. You're going to be a fruitful Christian. Faith in anything else in Christianity is going to lead to stagnation and frustration and struggling. As another example, someone might say to you that breathing allows you to live. And that makes sense. But you can also breathe and die. And what if you're breathing poisonous air? So it's not the act of breathing itself that allows you to live, but it's what you're breathing that allows you to live. You can breathe in poison and pass away. And you're using the same actions that you would use to breathe in air rich with oxygen that would help you live. So in the Christian world, what this means is that faith doesn't save us, but faith in Jesus Christ saves us. So I want you to take that in your religion and make it real for you. Realize that you can kind of fool yourself. You can have faith in something, an activity or an object, but it's not the exact object that you should be focused on. Now in Christianity, we believe in directing this faith to he who claimed that he was the way, the truth, and the life. That's quoted from John 4:6. So in Christianity, when we have Christ as the object of our faith, we have, by definition, truth that is then the object of our faith. And this, to Christians, releases us from bondage. And when, as Christians, our faith moves away from the truth, well, we go back into bondage. Now, we're all human, and God knows this. We're all prone to making changes that we probably shouldn't make without much encouragement. We can actually be led astray pretty easily sometimes. And this is why we need to have faith in God. We need to put our faith in something outside of ourselves. We need to put our faith in something stronger than ourselves. If we want to get anywhere and have the resilience that we need and the longevity that we need and the persistence that we need, well, human frailty and human shiftiness is such that it probably won't get us there. So having faith in God, putting your faith in God, and allowing that energy to pull you forward, that's going to get you somewhere. All right, let's take a little break now, and I want to make sure that you're with me, that you're paying attention, and that you're learning something. So, what I want you to do right now is if you're driving and you can pull over, go ahead and do that. If you're not driving, then you can definitely do this. You can take out a piece of paper and you can write down 5 things that you've learned so far from what I've said. 5 things that resonated with you. Now, I want you to keep in mind, they don't even have to be 5 things that I said. Maybe you got some good ideas from what I said. Maybe I said something and your brain took it and blew it up a million times and came up with all kinds of wonderful, amazing possibilities based on what I said. If that's the case, then feel free to write that down. I just want you to write down 5 things, whether they came from me or they're just thoughts that came in your head. 5 things that have come to you so far, either from me saying them or from you thinking them, as a result of listening to this program so far. So as I'm silent, I'm going to give you ample time now. I want you to write down 5 things, 5 thoughts that you have as a result of listening to this program so far. Do this now. Okay, do you have your 5 things? If not, go ahead and finish them up. 5 things, write them down. So I'm going to move forward now. Let's take those 5 things that you have written down, and I want you to elaborate on them. For example, if you have an insight number 1, that's I should change blank about myself, whatever it may be, I want you to elaborate on that. Whatever you've written down for point number 1, something that's come to you during listening to this program, I want you to elaborate on that now as I'm silent. Good. And now I want you to take point number 2 and elaborate on that. What was the second point that you wrote down, and how can you enhance this idea? I want you to make it real for yourself because I want you to have, after you finish this program, something you can use. So on point number 2, elaborate on it. Consider what you wrote down as point number 2, the foundation. Now build a house on it. Go ahead and write down something now as I'm silent. Good. Now you're getting some momentum. Now for point 3. Point number 3 that you wrote down, something that came to you as you listened to this program, I want you to elaborate on point number 3 as I'm silent. Good. Now take point number 4, the fourth point that you wrote down, something that came to you while you were listening to this program. I want you to elaborate on point number 4 as I'm silent. Great. Last but not least, point number 5. Take point number 5 and elaborate on it as I'm silent. Good. So now you have something that you can take with you after this program. You have those 5 points that you elaborated on, and you can use them after this program's over. So let's continue on with the information now.